The absurd first contact. Captain Maya Tanaka sat in the command chair of the UES Pioneer, Earth's most advanced deep space exploration vessel. The routine patrol beyond Neptune had been uneventful for weeks, which suited her just fine. After 15 years in space, she appreciated the quiet moments between discoveries. "Captain, I'm reading something unusual at the edge of the Oort cloud." Lieutenant James Okoye called from the sensor station, his Nigerian accent thick with concern. "The energy signature is unlike anything in our database." Maya straightened, setting down her tablet. "Define unusual, Lieutenant." "It's massive, ma'am, and it's moving toward us at impossible speeds." The bridge crew watched as their screens displayed a vessel that defied all known engineering principles. The ship was shaped like a giant teardrop, covered in what appeared to be golden scales that shifted and rippled like water. Protruding from its surface were countless spires that glowed with an eerie violet light. "Battle stations," Maya ordered calmly. "But remember, we're explorers first. Let's not start an interstellar incident." As the alien vessel approached, it became clear just how enormous it was. The Pioneer, at 300 meters long, looked like a toy beside it. The alien ship stretched for nearly 2 kilometers, its surface alive with strange patterns and lights. "We're being hailed, Captain," Communications Officer Sarah Rodriguez reported, her fingers flying over her console. "They're using..." "Wait, that's impossible. They're broadcasting in perfect English." Maya nodded. "On screen." The view screen flickered, and the bridge crew found themselves face to face with their first alien species. The being before them had a body that resembled a cross between a praying mantis and a peacock, with iridescent feathers covering its elongated form. But what caught everyone's attention was what sat atop its head. The alien wore what could only be described as a crown made of traffic cones, each one painted in different neon colors and adorned with what looked suspiciously like disco balls. The entire contraption swayed precariously as the alien moved. "Behold," the alien announced, its voice processed through a translator that gave it the tone of a game show host. "You gaze upon the magnificence of Ambassador Zelthax the Resplendent, herald of the stellar dominion, keeper of the 7 sacred protocols, and master of the cosmic dance." A snort escaped from someone on the bridge. Maya shot a warning glance at her crew, but she could see them all struggling to maintain composure. The alien continued, seemingly oblivious. "Your primitive vessel has entered the domain of the stellar dominion, an empire that spans 3 galaxies and commands the loyalty of 10,000 species. Prepare to receive the blessing of submission." As Zelthax spoke, he began to gesture dramatically with his multiple limbs. Each movement caused his traffic cone crown to wobble dangerously, and the disco balls caught the light, sending sparkles across the alien bridge behind him. "I am authorized by His Supreme Radiance, Emperor Glorb the Eternal, to offer your species the honor of becoming Level 4 vassals. You shall surrender 60% of your planetary resources and provide 1 million of your finest specimens for Imperial service." Lieutenant Okoye coughed loudly, turning away from his station. Maya could see his shoulders shaking with suppressed laughter. "Ambassador Zelthax," Maya began, fighting to keep her voice steady, "we appreciate your generous offer. However, humanity prefers to discuss such matters through proper diplomatic channels. Perhaps we could arrange a formal meeting." The alien's feathers ruffled in what might have been indignation. "You dare to delay the inevitable. The stellar dominion does not negotiate with lesser beings. We decree, and you obey." At that moment, another alien appeared behind Zelthax, carrying what appeared to be a ceremonial staff. The staff was adorned with what looked exactly like rubber chickens, complete with squeaking sounds as it moved. That was the breaking point. Navigation Officer Tom Chen let out a laugh that he quickly tried to disguise as a cough. The sound seemed to confuse Zelthax. "What is this noise you make? Is this your species' surrender cry?" Maya cleared her throat. "No, Ambassador. It's a sign of respect in our culture. We're simply overwhelmed by your impressive presence. Ah, yes, of course, Zelthax preened, his traffic cone crown tilting dangerously to one side. Many species are struck speechless by our majesty. Now let us proceed with the submission ceremony. You must perform the dance of eternal servitude. The alien began to demonstrate what appeared to be an elaborate series of movements that combined ballet, breakdancing, and what looked suspiciously like the chicken dance. His crown finally gave up the fight against gravity and toppled forward, disco balls scattering across the alien bridge. The entire human bridge crew lost it. Laughter erupted from every station as Zelthax scrambled to retrieve his ceremonial headgear, his dignity in tatters. This is an outrage, the alien sputtered, his feathers now angry shade of red. You mock the sacred traditions of the stellar dominion. Maya wiped tears from her eyes, trying to regain control. Ambassador, please understand. We mean no disrespect. It's just that, well, our species has a different way of expressing admiration. Different. Zelthax was practically vibrating with indignation. For 10,000 years, the dance of eternal servitude has struck fear into the hearts of countless species. I'm sure it has, Maya managed, biting her lip. Perhaps we could start over. Earth would be happy to establish peaceful relations with the stellar dominion. The alien seemed to consider this, his feathers slowly returning to their original iridescent sheen. Very well. But know this, humans. The stellar dominion remembers all slights. We shall return with the full might of our empire, and then you shall learn proper respect. The transmission cut off abruptly, leaving the bridge crew in various states of hysteria. Maya let them have their moment before calling for order. All right, people, that's enough. We need to report this to Earth Command immediately, and someone please tell me we got all of that on video. Every glorious second, Captain, Rodriguez confirmed, grinning. As the Pioneer turned back toward Earth, none of them could have known that their laughter would set off a chain of events that would change the galaxy forever. The stellar dominion, for all its power and majesty, had never encountered a species quite like humanity, one that found the absurd in the terrifying and humored in the face of overwhelming odds. The video of the first contact went viral within hours of reaching Earth. Memes of Ambassador Zelthax and his traffic cone crown spread across the internet like wildfire. Dance of Eternal Servitude became the newest dance craze, and rubber chickens sold out worldwide. But while humanity laughed, the leaders of Earth knew they had to prepare. The stellar dominion would return, and next time, they might not find humanity's sense of humor quite so amusing. Little did they know that their greatest weapon against the mighty empire would turn out to be the very thing that had started it all. Their irrepressible ability to find humor in the most unlikely places. As Captain Tanaka filed her report, she couldn't help but smile. First contact with an alien species had gone nothing like the simulations. But then again, she thought, when had humanity ever done things the conventional way? The stage was set for the most unusual diplomatic crisis in galactic history, where the fate of Earth would hang in the balance between servitude and laughter, and where humanity would discover that sometimes the best defense against tyranny is a good sense of humor. Word count, 1,403. Let me continue to reach the 2,000-word target for Part 1. The aftermath of the first contact rippled through Earth's governments like a shockwave. Emergency sessions were called at the United Nations, military strategists worked around the clock, and diplomats scrambled to develop protocols for a species that seemed to take itself far too seriously. Dr. Elena Vargas, Earth's leading synopsichologist, reviewed the footage for the 100th time in her office at the Global Defense Institute. She paused at the moment when Zelthax's crown had fallen, studying the alien's reaction. Fascinating, she murmured to her assistant, Dr. Rajpatal. Their entire power structure seems based on theatrical displays of authority. The more ridiculous it appears to us, the more serious it is to them. Raj nodded, making notes. It's like they've evolved in a cultural bubble where no one ever questioned the absurdity of their traditions. Their analysis was interrupted by an urgent call from the UN Secretary-General. "Dr. Vargas, we need your assessment immediately. How should we proceed when they return?" Elena thought carefully before responding. "Secretary-General, I believe our best approach is to treat them with utmost seriousness, while preparing for the possibility that our natural reactions might cause further incidents." Meanwhile, aboard the UES Pioneer, Captain Tanaka and her crew were debriefing with Earth Command. Admiral Sarah Wong's face filled the main screen, her expression a mix of concern and barely suppressed amusement. "Captain, your first contact report has caused quite a stir. The Joint Chiefs are divided between treating this as a serious threat and, well, some of them can't stop watching the video." Maya nodded. "I understand, Admiral. Despite their appearance, the Stellar Dominion's technology is clearly advanced. We shouldn't underestimate them." "Agreed. We're assembling a diplomatic team, but we need your crew to brief them on everything you observed. Every detail could be crucial." As Earth prepared for the Dominion's return, strange things began happening across the planet. Amateur astronomers reported unusual energy signatures near Jupiter. Radio telescopes picked up what sounded like ceremonial music mixed with what could only be described as cosmic elevator music. 3 weeks after the first contact, the waiting ended. A fleet of Stellar Dominion ships emerged from hyperspace just beyond Mars. Each vessel was more ornate than the last, resembling a parade of interstellar carnival floats rather than a military armada. The flagship, a massive construct that looked like a crystalline cathedral crossed with a Vegas casino, positioned itself in Earth orbit. Ambassador Zelthax's face appeared on every screen on the planet. "Humans of Earth," he proclaimed, his new headgear even more elaborate than before, this time featuring what appeared to be miniature fountains and rotating satellite dishes. "The Stellar Dominion has returned to accept your surrender. Prepare your leaders for the ceremony of submission." World leaders gathered in the newly constructed First Contact Chamber, a facility designed specifically for alien diplomacy. They had been coached extensively on maintaining composure, no matter what they witnessed. President Maria Gonzalez of the Earth Union stepped forward, flanked by representatives from every major nation. She had practiced her speech countless times, determined to navigate this crucial moment in human history. "Ambassador Zelthax," she began formally, "Earth welcomes the Stellar Dominion. We are prepared to discuss the establishment of peaceful relations between our peoples." The alien's feathers bristled. "Discuss. The Stellar Dominion does not discuss. We proclaim, and lesser beings obey. Now, present your surrender offerings." At this point, a procession of alien dignitaries entered the chamber. Each one seemed to be competing for the most outlandish appearance. One wore what looked like a chandelier for a hat. Another had apparently decided that wearing living fish in transparent spheres was the height of fashion. The human delegation maintained their composure admirably until the master of ceremonies appeared. This unfortunate being was draped in what could only be described as a suit made entirely of whoopee cushions. Every step produced a symphony of embarrassing sounds. A snicker escaped from someone in the back of the human delegation. Then another. Soon, despite their best efforts, the entire chamber was struggling not to laugh. Zelthax's feathers turned a deep crimson. "Again you mock our sacred traditions. This is an act of war." President Gonzalez stepped forward quickly. "Ambassador, please. You must understand that humans express many emotions through laughter. Sometimes we laugh when we're nervous or surprised, or even impressed." "Impressed?" Zelthax seemed intrigued, despite his anger. "Yes," Gonzalez continued, thinking quickly. "Your ceremonial attire is so magnificent that it overwhelms our simple human minds. We laugh because we cannot comprehend such grandeur." The alien's feathers slowly returned to their normal color. Yes. Many species have been overcome by our splendor. Very well, we shall proceed with the ceremony. But be warned, any further disruptions will be met with the full might of our empire." As the ceremony of submission began, It became clear that humanity was in for the most challenging diplomatic test in its history. The fate of Earth now rested on their ability to keep straight faces in the most absurd situation imaginable. The diplomatic disaster. 3 months after the first contact, Ambassador Rachel Chen stood in front of her bathroom mirror aboard the Earth diplomatic vessel Harmony. She practiced her most serious expression, determined not to repeat the embarrassing incidents of previous encounters with the Stellar Dominion. Remember, she told her reflection, no matter what you see, no matter how ridiculous it looks, you will not laugh. She had been selected for this mission precisely because of her legendary poker face, honed through years of high-stakes negotiations. Her team of diplomats, cultural experts, and xenolinguists had undergone intensive training. They had watched hours of Stellar Dominion footage, practiced meditation techniques, and even used medical suppressants to control involuntary laughter. Earth's future depended on this meeting going smoothly. The Harmony docked with the Dominion flagship, the Eternal Majesty, a vessel that looked like someone had gold-plated a Baroque cathedral and stuck it in space. As the airlock opened, Rachel and her team were greeted by an honor guard of aliens wearing what appeared to be tutus made of metal and elaborate headdresses that defied gravity. "Welcome, Earth delegates, to the glorious sanctuary of His Supreme Radiance," announced Protocol Master Vrixnor, whose outfit included a cape made entirely of tiny bells that jingled with every movement. "You shall now undergo the purification of intent before meeting the Grand Council." The purification ritual involved walking through a series of arches that sprayed them with what smelled like a combination of cotton candy and motor oil. Rachel maintained her composure even when her perfectly styled hair was transformed into something resembling a rainbow-colored bird's nest. They were led to the Grand Council chamber, a vast space decorated with floating crystals, holographic waterfalls, and what appeared to be a zero-gravity aquarium filled with creatures that looked like neon bow ties with tentacles. The council members entered with great ceremony. Each alien seemed to have interpreted formal attire differently. One wore a suit made of mirrors that reflected lasers in all directions. Another had apparently decided that wearing a small weather system, complete with miniature lightning and rain, was appropriate formal wear. Grand Counselor Zixthor, distinguished by his robe made of living butterflies, gestured for the humans to be seated. "We shall begin with the traditional Feast of Understanding," he announced. "Partake of our sacred delicacies, and let our cultures become as one." The feast began with appetizers that defied description. Rachel found herself staring at a plate of something that appeared to be tap dancing while changing colors. Following their training, the human delegation gamely attempted to eat their moving, singing, and in some cases, arguing food. Cultural attaché Dr. Marcus Wright leaned toward Rachel and whispered, "I think my soup just tried to tell me a joke. Eat it before it reaches the punchline." Rachel muttered back, spearing something that looked like a glowing marshmallow with her fork. It squeaked indignantly before she popped it in her mouth. To her surprise, it tasted like chocolate. The main course arrived with great fanfare. Servants brought in covered dishes that, when opened, released small fireworks displays. The food itself appeared to be performing synchronized swimming routines in their serving bowls. "Behold," proclaimed Zixthor, "the 17 sacred dishes of harmony. Each one represents a fundamental force of the universe." As the aliens began their elaborate dining ritual, which involved juggling their food before eating it, disaster struck. Dr. Wright, attempting to follow proper protocol, accidentally launched his entree across the table. The glowing, tentacled delicacy landed squarely on the Grand Counselor's butterfly robe. The room fell silent. The butterflies, apparently offended by the interruption, began to scatter in all directions, creating a kaleidoscope of chaos. Zixthor's expression cycled through several colors of outrage. Rachel stood quickly, her mind racing. "Grand Counselor, please accept our deepest apologies. On Earth, we have a tradition that when food chooses a new master, it is a sign of great honor." The alien's colors shifted to confusion. "Your food chooses?" "Oh yes," Rachel improvised. Dr. Wright's dish clearly recognized your superior wisdom and sought to be closer to you. It's the highest compliment in human culture. The council members murmured among themselves, their translator devices creating a symphony of whispers. Finally, Zixthor's colors settled into what might have been pleasure. "We are honored by this recognition," he declared. "Let the feast continue." The rest of the banquet proceeded with only minor incidents, including a dessert that apparently had to be serenaded before it would allow itself to be eaten, and a beverage that changed flavor based on the drinker's emotional state. Rachel was grateful hers remained steadfastly tasteless, reflecting her determined neutrality. After the feast, the formal negotiations began. The humans were presented with the terms of submission, a document that appeared to be written on what looked like solidified light and smelled faintly of cinnamon. "These are the 77 sacred stipulations," intoned legal advocate Plixmar, whose outfit included a wig made of fiber optic cables that displayed scrolling legal text. "Your species shall hereby pledge eternal servitude to the stellar dominion, surrendering all resources, technology, and maple syrup." Rachel blinked. "Maple syrup. Our scouts have identified it as your most valuable strategic resource," Plixmar explained seriously. "The Emperor has developed quite a taste for it." As the terms were read aloud, each more absurd than the last, Rachel realized that despite their advanced technology, the Stellar Dominion had fundamentally misunderstood human civilization. They seemed to believe that boy bands were military units, that shopping malls were religious temples, and that reality TV shows were historical documentaries. Article 42. Plixmar continued, "All humans shall henceforth wear the sacred hat of obedience on alternate Tuesdays." At this point, Dr. Wright made the mistake of taking the sip of water. The mental image of the entire human race wearing whatever constituted a sacred hat of obedience caused him to perform a spectacular spit-take. The council recoiled in shock. "What is the meaning of this aquatic assault?" demanded Zixthor. Rachel, thinking quickly once again, stood up. "Grand Counselor, in human culture, the ceremonial spraying of water signifies that we are so moved by your wisdom that we must share our life-giving moisture with those around us." The aliens conferred among themselves again. Their gullibility would have been amusing if the situation weren't so dire. Meanwhile, back on Earth, military strategists had not been idle. Operation Humor Shield was in full effect. If the Stellar Dominion wanted to observe human military capabilities, Earth would give them a show they'd never forget. General Patricia Morrison reviewed the operation parameters with grim amusement. "Remember, people, our goal is maximum confusion with minimum actual threat. We want them so baffled they can't tell if we're dangerous or insane." Across the globe, military bases began implementing the most bizarre training exercises ever conceived. Tanks were painted in bright polka dots. Fighter jets flew in formations that spelled out nonsensical phrases. Infantry units practiced what looked like aggressive interpretive dance. In orbit, the Dominion observation ships watched in growing confusion as humanity seemed to descend into coordinated madness. Commander Vexthor, the Dominion's chief military analyst, filed increasingly frustrated reports. Day 7. Human military practices continue to defy all known tactical doctrine. Today observed armored units engaging in what appears to be a choreographed dance routine to primitive audio broadcasts. Purpose unknown. Effectiveness in combat inconclusive. Back aboard the Eternal Majesty, the negotiations had reached a critical point. The Council demanded a demonstration of human submission. They had prepared an elaborate ceremony involving interpretive dance, ritual humiliation, and something called the Crown of Eternal Shame, which looked suspiciously like a colander covered in Christmas lights. Rachel knew she had to stall for time. Earth scientists were working on a response to the Dominion's technology, but they needed more data. "Honored Council members," she began, "before we proceed with such a momentous ceremony, human tradition requires that we first exchange gifts of understanding." She signaled to her team, who brought forth Earth's carefully chosen diplomatic presents. They had selected items that would either confuse or subtly mock the Dominion while appearing respectful. The first gift was a rubber chicken wearing a tiny crown. This represents the duality of power and humility, Rachel explained with a straight face. Next came a lava lamp. This contains the essence of Earth's oceans, forever in motion, like the relationship between our peoples. The aliens examined each gift with reverent confusion, adding their own elaborate interpretations to Rachel's explanations. The rubber chicken was declared a sacred totem. The lava lamp was proclaimed to contain profound cosmic wisdom. But it was the final gift that proved most effective. A whoopee cushion presented in an ornate box. This is the cushion of truth, Rachel declared solemnly. When sat upon, it speaks with the voice of destiny. Zixthor personally tested the cushion, producing a sound that echoed through the chamber. The council members gasped in awe. Truly, your people possess deep wisdom. The Grand Counselor exclaimed. We must study these artifacts further before proceeding with the submission ceremony. As the meeting adjourned, Rachel allowed herself a small smile. They had bought Earth more time, and more importantly, they had gathered crucial intelligence about their would-be conquerors. The Stellar Dominion, for all their power, had a fatal flaw. They were so convinced of their own superiority that they couldn't recognize when they were being played. The question now was, how long could humanity keep up the act before the Dominion realized they were the butt of the biggest joke in galactic history? Word count, 1,744. Let me continue to reach the full 2,000 words for Part 2. As Rachel and her team prepared to depart, they received an encrypted message from Earth. Operation Humor Shield was entering Phase 2, and they needed to plant the seeds for the next stage of humanity's most unconventional defense strategy. Ambassador Chen. Zixthor called out as they reached the airlock. Before you leave, we have one more matter to discuss. Rachel turned, maintaining her diplomatic composure. Of course, Grand Counselor. Our Emperor wishes to witness your military capabilities firsthand. He will arrive in your system within one solar cycle. Prepare your forces for inspection. Rachel's mind raced. This was exactly what Earth had been preparing for. We would be honored, Grand Counselor. Our military will demonstrate the full range of human tactical innovation. As the Harmony departed from the Eternal Majesty, Rachel gathered her team for debriefing. People, we've just been handed the opportunity we've been waiting for. The Dominion wants a military demonstration. We're going to give them one they'll never forget. Dr. Wright grinned. Operation Cosmic Joke is a go. Rachel nodded. It's time to show them that humanity's greatest weapon isn't our technology or our numbers. It's our ability to turn the absurd into an art form. Back on Earth, preparations began immediately. The news spread through military channels. The Emperor himself was coming, and humanity would put on the greatest show in the galaxy. The Comedy of Galactic Errors. Commander Vexthor stood on the bridge of his stealth observation ship, the Silent Wisdom, watching Earth's military preparations with growing bewilderment. As the Stellar Dominion's most decorated intelligence officer, he had studied countless species before their subjugation. None had ever behaved like humans. Status report, he demanded, his scales shifting to a frustrated purple. Sir, replied Lieutenant Crixval, her sensory tentacles twitching nervously, the humans appear to be painting their warships. Camouflage patterns. No, sir, they're painting them with smiling faces and flowers. Vexthor's scales darkened further. Show me. The view screen displayed Earth's Atlantic Fleet, where aircraft carriers now sported massive yellow smiley faces on their decks. Destroyers had been painted in rainbow patterns, and submarines surfaced just long enough to reveal peace symbols on their conning towers. Perhaps it's psychological warfare, Crixval suggested hopefully. Before Vexthor could respond, another report came in. Commander, the humans are broadcasting something called a playlist on all military frequencies. It appears to be music. The bridge was suddenly filled with the sounds of IMCA by the village people. Vexthor watched in horror as, on the screen below, thousands of soldiers began performing the accompanying dance in perfect synchronization. Meanwhile, on Earth, General Morrison oversaw Operation Cosmic Joke from the Global Defense Command Center. "Status report on all sectors," she ordered. "Air Force is ready with Operation Disco Sky," reported Colonel Adams. "Naval forces have completed Operation Rainbow Warrior. Army units are in position for Operation Dance Dance Revolution." Morrison nodded grimly. "And the special surprise? The orbital gymnastics team is standing by, Mom." The day of the Emperor's arrival came all too quickly. His personal flagship, the Infinite Glory, emerged from hyperspace accompanied by a fleet that blotted out the stars. The ship was so ostentatious it made the Eternal Majesty look modest, a golden monstrosity covered in spinning crystals, each one broadcasting the Emperor's face in holographic splendor. Emperor Glorb the Eternal appeared on every screen on Earth. His appearance defied description. Imagine a peacock that had mated with a disco ball, and then fallen into a vat of glitter. His crown was less a piece of headwear, and more a small architectural wonder, complete with tiny floating platforms where miniature creatures performed interpretive dance. "Humans," his voice boomed, "your primitive world shall now witness the might of the stellar dominion. Present your military forces for inspection." President Gonzalez, standing ready in the Global Communications Center, responded formally. "We are honored by your presence, your magnificence. Our forces await your inspection." The Emperor's fleet moved into low Earth orbit, their sensors focused on the planet below. "Begin the demonstration," he commanded. What followed would go down in galactic history as the most bewildering military display ever witnessed. It started with the Air Force. Fighter jets took to the skies in massive formations, but instead of performing combat maneuvers, they executed what could only be described as aerial ballet. Hundreds of aircraft moved in perfect synchronization to Tchaikovsky's Swan Lake, leaving rainbow-colored contrails that spelled out "Well see you many of Indies" in dozens of languages. The Emperor's military advisors muttered among themselves, trying to discern the tactical advantage of such maneuvers. Next came the Navy. Warships arranged themselves to form enormous pictures visible from space. First a heart, then a dove, then the face of what appeared to be a surprised cat. Nuclear submarines surfaced in choreographed sequences, their crews emerging to perform synchronized swimming routines on the decks. What am I watching?" the Emperor demanded, his crown tilting dangerously as he leaned forward. "Perhaps it's a form of aquatic intimidation, Your Magnificence," suggested Admiral Zortek uncertainly. The Army's turn came next. Across every continent, infantry units began what looked like the world's largest flash mob. Tanks rolled in precise patterns that, when viewed from orbit, created animated pictures. Soldiers performed elaborate dance routines with their weapons, tossing rifles like batons in perfect unison. But humanity saved the best for last. As the Dominion fleet watched in stunned silence, the International Space Station deployed the orbital gymnastics team. Astronauts in specially designed suits performed zero-gravity acrobatics, using tethers and small thrusters to create a spectacular show that defied physics and common sense. The grand finale involved the astronauts forming a giant floating peace symbol, then rearranging themselves to spell out, "Make Lovi not war," in perfect formation. Emperor Glorb sat speechless on his throne, his magnificent crown slowly sliding off his head unnoticed. His advisors looked at each other in confusion, their universal translators working overtime to find words for what they were witnessing. Commander Vexthor, watching from his observation ship, finally broke the silence. "Your Magnificence, I believe the humans are mocking us." "Mocking?" the Emperor sputtered. "This is mockery." "Or perhaps," interjected Chief Scientist Kiplon, who had been studying human culture, "this is their way of showing us something we've missed." "Explain yourself," the Emperor demanded. Kiplon stepped forward nervously. "Your Magnificence, in all our conquests, we've encountered fear, anger, and submission. But we've never encountered joy. The humans aren't showing us their military might. They're showing us their spirit. The Emperor considered this, his feathers cycling through various shades of contemplation. Below, the human forces had transitioned into what appeared to be a global celebration. Music played, people danced, and messages of peace and unity were broadcast in every language of the Dominion. Ambassador Chen, the Emperor called out suddenly, "Explain this display." Rachel, who had returned to Earth for this moment, stepped forward in the communication center. "Your Magnificence, what you're witnessing is humanity's greatest strength. We face the vast, often frightening universe not with fear or aggression, but with hope, creativity, and yes, humor. But your military capabilities are exactly what you're seeing," Rachel interrupted boldly. "We can create weapons of terrible destruction, yes, but we choose instead to create joy. We choose to laugh in the face of fear. We choose to dance when others would fight." The Emperor was quiet for a long moment. Around him, his advisors watched nervously as their leader's colors shifted through a spectrum of emotions they'd never seen before. Finally, he spoke. "In 10,000 years of conquest, we have never encountered a species that responds to the threat of subjugation with celebration." He paused, then did something no stellar Dominion Emperor had ever done. He laughed. It started as a small chuckle, then grew into full-bodied laughter that shook his elaborate throne. His advisors, shocked at first, began to join in. Soon, the entire bridge of the infinite glory was filled with the sound of alien laughter. "Ambassador Chen," the Emperor said when he finally regained his composure, "I believe we need to reassess our relationship with humanity." What followed were the most unusual treaty negotiations in galactic history. The Stellar Dominion, for the first time, approached another species as equals rather than subjects. They discovered that their empire, built on intimidation and ceremony, had been missing something fundamental: the ability to not take themselves so seriously. As for the rubber chicken that started it all, it was enshrined in the Galactic Museum of First Contact with a plaque that read, "The artifact that taught an empire to laugh." Word count, 1,544. Let me continue to reach the full 2,000 words for Part 3. The transformation of the Stellar Dominion sent ripples throughout the galaxy. Other species, long oppressed by the Empire's heavy-handed rule, began to see possibilities they'd never imagined. The Zorgans, a race of mathematical geniuses who had been forced to calculate tax revenues for the Empire, started using their skills to create cosmic-scale art installations. The Vreen, whose planet had been strip-mined for resources, discovered that their bioluminescent forests made excellent venues for interstellar music festivals. Captain Maya Tanaka, whose first encounter had sparked this cosmic revolution, was appointed Earth's first galactic cultural ambassador. She traveled the stars aboard the newly christened U.S. Friendship, teaching alien species about human concepts like irony, sarcasm, and dad jokes. "The universe," she often said in her lectures, "is far too strange and wonderful to approach with anything but a sense of humor." Dr. Elena Vargas founded the Institute for Interstellar Understanding, where scholars from across the galaxy came to study the psychology of humor. Her groundbreaking paper, Laughing Across Light Years: The Universal Nature of Comedy, became required reading in diplomatic academies throughout known space. The Stellar Dominion's military, once feared throughout the galaxy, underwent a complete transformation. Instead of conquest fleets, they now deployed cultural exchange armadas. Their weapon systems were converted into the galaxy's most elaborate fireworks displays, and their training exercises became opportunities for interspecies dance competitions. Commander Vexthor, the intelligence officer who had first recognized humanity's mockery, became the galaxy's first professor of comedic strategy. His course, From Warfare to Funfair, the Art of Diplomatic Humor, was always oversubscribed. Perhaps the most remarkable change came in the form of the Galactic Comedy Festival, held annually on a different world. Species from across the cosmos gathered to share their unique forms of humor. The crystalline entities of Proxima told jokes through light refraction. The gas giants of Betelgeuse performed stand-up routines that literally changed the atmosphere. And humans, of course, remained the masters of physical comedy and wordplay. Emperor Glorb, in his retirement speech, delivered while wearing a rubber chicken on his head as a sign of respect to humanity, summed up the transformation. We sought to rule the galaxy through fear and found ourselves ruled by joy instead. Perhaps that was the cosmic joke all along. As humanity ventured further into the cosmos, they encountered new challenges and new species, but they faced each encounter with the same spirit that had saved them from the stellar dominion, with creativity, courage, and an unshakable belief that laughter could bridge any divide. And somewhere in the vast expanse of space, if you tune your receivers just right, you can still hear the echo of that first, galaxy-changing laugh. A reminder that sometimes the most powerful force in the universe is the simple ability to not take yourself too seriously. The story of how humanity saved itself by making an empire laugh became legend, told and retold in countless languages across the stars. And while the details might change with each telling, the message remained the same. In a universe full of wonders and terrors, laughter might just be the most powerful force of all.